Hi, my name is Leandra Hoke. I was born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina. I am one of four brothers. My mom was a single mom. Three of the brothers belonged to her, so we had a household of myself and two of my brothers, and my oldest brother was raised by my grandparents. I've always wanted to do hair. There were a couple of other career choices I had in mind, but I wasn't the ideal student and I really hated school, to be honest with you. So hair was my passion, and it was also the easiest route to success in my opinion. I started Amiliana's hair studio in August 5th, 2014. So August 5th this year will be our 10-year anniversary. And I've been in this location on Sweeten Creek for about 4.5 years. My first location is in Oakley. I was there for about total 7 years. And before that, I started Amiliana's hair studio downtown Asheville. As far as our economic situation in Asheville for black folks, I feel like, there's plenty of ways to make money and jobs available. I just don't think that we are included in knowing what that plenty is. Or having access to that plenty, as far as being able to go and apply for a job and execute being hired for that job. I think when I was a kid growing up, I never really thought about like going to college and maybe being a doctor or a lawyer. I really wanted to be an architect, but again, I hated school. I wasn't a good student. I made terrible grades. I hate reading. The teachers, I stayed in trouble. I think I had 62 referrals by my sophomore year in high school. A lot of which came from being tardy to school, because again, I had a single mom. We had to get ready, 3 kids, and she had to get ready for work and out the door. So with that being said, we were always late. We were always there, but always late. Yeah, so the little that I've heard is that there is a committee. One of my clients brought it to my attention, I would say maybe a 1.5 years ago or so, maybe 2 years. And that was probably a week or less than a week before they closed, I guess, applications for people who wanted to join the committee. And he was telling me how one of the other clients who referred him to me were going to be part of the committee, and they weren't from here or anything, which, I mean, I guess that's cool. And then he went on to kind of explain what he thought it was going to be and what their goal was, which from my understanding is to delegate funds for the black community in Asheville that were allotted for reparations. Again, I heard it from a client, so outside of that, I would have never heard about it. I wouldn't have known it was a thing. I wouldn't have known that there was an opportunity to even be heard on the subject, let alone the subject even existing. So yeah, they could have done a much better job including us and asking us to be part of that committee. But it seems like they reached out elsewhere for people maybe in surrounding areas in North Carolina who aren't from Asheville, which in my opinion, I'm sure each city is different. Just being from here, I feel like we have a very unique and odd situation in Asheville when it comes to our place as black people in general. So I think it would have been important for us to be heard personally instead of people from other places who might be implementing their thoughts of their own communities, which may be way different than ours.
Yeah, I'm Tamanika Mahorn. I've only lived in this area for about 4 years, but one of the things that I've noticed when it comes to trying to find people for that, throughout this country, they're very good at finding people that are not from the area that are receiving that harm. Whereas I have a better chance of being notified about something like that, and I'm not even from here, versus somebody who is native here. When even in my hometown back in Pennsylvania, I've noticed that they'll go and they'll find some local who's probably from Jamaica and start talking about what we need to do as far as how we can make our neighborhood better. You're not from here. How would you know what anybody from here has actually suffered? I don't know. I know what I've suffered from Pennsylvania, and even though our stories may be similar, majority of the talking would end up coming from somebody that's not even from here, and that's on average. And I've moved around a lot.
It sounds very counterproductive.
It is.
And intentional. Do you think it is?
I do think that is very, very intentional. Very intentional. Especially when you look at the history of reparations that have been paid out throughout this country to other people from other countries. How are we still on the list? Like, we applied for reparations first, yet everybody has received reparations. They have a whole list of different sections of different types of communities that have received reparations, and yet we're still waiting. What we're waiting for?
We waiting, in my opinion.
And we're waiting for studies to be done. Studies of what? How you can get around giving us reparations?
Absolutely.
That's the only study that it seems to be coming up for me. It's a study being done on how can we not give our local citizens what they should be receiving.
Or furthermore, how can we be more in control over how those funds are delegated? How can we take charge? How can we be in charge of how these people receive their due diligence, per se? Like,
yeah.
Let's figure out, okay, first step is find some folks that ain't even from here. They don't know what's going on. We're going to be more of an influence to them because we're going to be able to tell them, we as in the people who choose these strangers to our area, to decide what we're using these reparations for. So we're going to choose people that we can kind of influence, B, tell them what we want them to know about our area, and C, get them to use those funds in a way that it just pacifies our community, because that's how most of our programs are for. They're to pacify. They're to put a band-aid on things, like make it look like we're doing something good and make it look like we're doing something positive for our community. Oh yeah, we gave y'all reparations, remember? But what did it do? We sat these people down 10 years from now, 20 years from now, because when I was a kid, we were in a program called Big Sister. The only thing I remember from it, again, a wonderful program, I appreciated it. The lady who would come pick me up and who was my big sister was great. I don't even remember her name. I couldn't tell you what I got from it, to be honest with you, aside from, thankfully maybe a babysitter for my mom while she worked, or some entertainment for me, so I'm not just sitting up at home by myself with my brothers. But aside from that, does it actually do anything to contribute to my livelihood and my quality of life as an adult in the future? Does that help us? No. And I'm not trying to be ugly, and I'm not trying to say our people aren't doing what we're supposed to do. We're doing what we think we're supposed to be doing and what these people tell us we should be doing, but not realizing the bigger picture. The bigger picture is, how am I benefiting from this in the future as adult Leandra? I'm not. You put a pacifier in my mama's mouth. Here you get this free babysitter. She gonna take your daughter to the park every once in a while. You know, she's a nice person for your kid to be around. Blah, blah, blah. You know, wonderful. You know, maybe keep me a little sheltered from some of the things that I was exposed to as a child. But did it truly change my life as an adult? If it did, someone help me, because I don't see it. And if these big brothers are helping our children for the future, not just for the now, not just for the Band-Aid, please tell me how, because I would like to know. I want to know. I really do. And as far as setting people up with jobs, and well, no, not even jobs. Let me take a step back. We want to know how this economic situation in Asheville is for us. I think the first step in that is getting our children thinking about what they want to do as they grow up. The very first thing I ask a student or a child that sits into my chair, what you want to do when you grow up? The number one answer is, I don't know. I don't know. But what do you like? I don't know. Okay, what do you do for fun? Play basketball? You know, like play football? Like, no, like what do you enjoy doing when... That's one thing I can commend my mom for. I did have an idea of what I enjoyed. But on the other side of it, that was kind of by default, because my mom couldn't afford to get my hair done. She couldn't afford to take my brothers to get their hair braided. So I'm learning at home, like, how am I going to deal with this mess on my head? How am I going to help my brothers with the mess on their head? So I learned how to do hair, and then I find a passion for it because I enjoyed how it made me feel afterwards. And I enjoyed how it made my brothers feel afterwards as well. It's an extreme confidence booster. Mm-hmm. Like, one of the most important aspects of success, in my opinion, is how you feel about yourself. That first self-feeling comes from looking in the mirror. Oh, I like how I look. Cool. So now I can go out here and face the world. Now, the second part is, how do you feel about you as the individual? Like, do I think I'm stupid? Do I think I'm smart? Do I think I'm productive? Do I think I'm useful? What do I think about myself? And that's where, in my opinion, which I think is a fact, that's where most black people are being sold short. Like, yeah, you can, we real confident in our outer appearance 9 times out of 10. That's the easy part for us. But as far as like our community, they tell us we ain't worth nothing, we ain't gonna be nothing, we ain't gonna do nothing with ourselves. So our failure has been determined for us before we even step foot into the world. Like, you suck. I was told in high school by a real teacher that, Leandra, you're going to be statistically a high school dropout and a teen mom. First of all, I graduated high school. I didn't have my first kid until I was 22, almost 22. No, almost 23. And I had my business established by the time I was in my early 20s. So, no, I wasn't a high school dropout or a teen mom, but words have power. And if my mom didn't raise me to look past the nonsense that these people say to me and not believe it and not give those words power, then I probably would be a teen mom and a high school dropout, because I would have believed that. They got better everything than I did, and most importantly than my brothers did. Like, I think that to an extent maybe I got a glimpse of that that privilege because of maybe my complexion and the fact that I'm a female. But all my brothers and siblings are brown, and they're boys, men now, and I could see it even with them. Like, yes, I think it was an issue with myself, but more so witnessing it from what the educational system did to my brothers because of their skin tone. My skin tone didn't get in the way initially. Things didn't start getting in the way for me until I got older, and that paperwork tells you that I'm black. It becomes a hurdle eventually. Initially it does not. So I feel like I probably benefited from our educational system better than my brothers did. But with that being said, the benefit was still garbage. Like, I still was told I wasn't going to graduate on time. Again, still being late to school every single day. So I'm getting referral after referral. Meanwhile, I know for a fact some of my white friends were late every day too and getting free passes. Like, they continued to write me up for nonsense. I mean, of course I was a kid, so I was still doing dumb stuff to get in trouble. I'm not saying that I was a saint and was getting in trouble for no reason, but majority of my write-ups were for technicalities like that. Or, you know, like getting in trouble for smoking in the bathroom. And I can't stand cigarettes, but my mom smoked in the car on the way to school sometimes. Or she smoked in the house, so my clothes smell like cigarettes. Oh, Leandra, you've been smoking in the bathroom. No, I didn't. My mom smokes. I don't smoke. But not believing me when I say that, knowing that my white counterpart smell like cigarettes too and is not getting sent to the office for smoking in the bathroom. But yeah, I think that even with my brothers, Demetric, he was an athlete, and just like myself, our grades weren't the best, but for him, in that aspect, things were better for him because he was a star athlete on our football team. So they made sure that, you know, he got all the support as far as making sure he's passing his classes good enough to be able to continue to play football, getting free passes and things like situations that he should have gotten written up but didn't because they wanted him to play in that next football game. But then in ways that he needed support, such as applying for like colleges and like scholarships and things like that, he didn't get that extra support. Thankfully, he did have a friend who played football as well, and his friend's dad, he was a white guy. He helped my brother apply for colleges and scholarships and things like that. So he did get a scholarship and a full ride to a college, but even that didn't pan out for him because he actually ended up being a teen parent and was expected to stay here to help with his child, as he did. You know, he was responsible and did that. But I feel like if he had other resources and more support, he would have been able to go to college and better himself for his future with his kids and his wife and so on and so forth. So, you know. And then we got my oldest brother, who was raised by my grandparents. The reason for him being raised by my grandparents was because my mom was a young mom. She got pregnant with him when she was 14 years old and had him when she was 15. So she was still at home with her parents, and she stayed there with them until she was 16. They convinced her to sign her rights over to them temporarily so that they could do things for my brother, like take him to the doctor, get him enrolled in school, you know, things that parents have to do that a 15, 16-year-old probably don't know what to do or can't do, or, you know, whatever the case may be. They were trying to, it was presented to her as, you know, they were helping her out, and that's what they were doing. One thing led to another. My mom was promised to get custody of him once she got her own place, her own job. And she did all that, but at that point my grandparents were very attached to my brother, and I don't blame them, and thought what was best for him is that he stayed with them, which again, I don't blame them for that. They were adults. My mom was a teenager, and I'm sure they didn't think that she was going to be able to raise him the way that he needed to be raised.
Yeah.
So long story short, you know, my mom had myself and my other two brothers, and you know, raised us. We kind of hopped around in a few projects in Asheville, and she did what she could to make sure we were taken care of. She was a good mom. She was a young mom, so of course she made irresponsible decisions here and there. But the way I looked at it, you know, my oldest brother had the best situation out of us. Like, he got to live with my grandparents, a stable home, 2 parents, private school. He got pretty much the best of both worlds, because, you know, we were still going over, hanging out, spending time, staying the night. You know, he still had his siblings. But what I later in life found out as an adult is that really had an effect on my brother mentally, as it would anyone. Of course, as a child, ain't nobody thinking about that. You got a good life, why are you tripping, you know? You don't want to be over here with us. We got all this extra stuff going on with mom, and you don't want any parts in that. So later on, we find out that my brother had a lot of mental health issues, and most of them stemmed from, you know, being a black child raised by white people, by older white people too, not just a white family that decided to adopt them, but these are his grandparents. They're white, and they're trying to raise him as if he were white, which that never goes well, because that's just not the fact. And he's in a school with all white people, and, you know, giving him a hard time about his hair, his lips, his complexion, his anything. I mean, you know, the everyday in your face type racism that I don't think he was built for, because he was raised in such a sheltered life. So again, long story short, a little backstory on him. He had mental health issues because of the way things panned out for him. And so fast forward to his senior year in high school, my grandparents allowed him to quit going to private school and attend Asheville High, so he could be around his peers and play sports, and, you know, just kind of be around people that he felt comfortable around, because he had never had that opportunity before. And so he went from sheltered white people life to all of a sudden exposed to everything, drugs, you know, what some people glorify and look at, especially if you're not a part of that lifestyle, like drug dealers and rapping and, you know, all this stuff that is part of our culture. But if you're not raised that way, you don't understand that that's fun and cool, but that's not what you want if that's not what you have to do. But he thought it was cool because he had never been around it. So then, bam, he broke his arm, I think, playing football. He broke something playing football. And he was a big boy. He was 6'8". He wasn't like fat, but he was a solid guy, and played football for Asheville High. So the doctor prescribed him pain medicine, far more than what he should have gotten, because he was a child. But they look at this big old man and they're like, oh, you need all this medicine to help with that. So quite naturally, depression, drugs, that drugs are, you know, kind of soothing your depression or whatever feelings you're having inside. You get addicted to that feeling of you know, being soothed.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't have any more pain medication because you know, his injury has healed and he doesn't need anymore. So then he turns to the streets for the drugs. And so he starts doing pills from the streets, because again, he's addicted. Okay, then when his friends tell him about heroin, he's like, hey bro, this is a quicker, faster high, same thing, whatever, try this. Me and my brother had a really close relationship, and so I'm glad because now I know the inside of an addict. But he gets hooked on heroin, and one thing leads to another, and now my brother's in the dirt. Like, he's gone. I don't have him anymore. He's been dead for 4 years, and he's never coming back because our healthcare system failed us. 1,000,000%. That's just a very small example of how that happened. My brother had mental health issues that he had never been able to work through, that he had never been able to discuss with people. Like, he and I didn't even get to talk about that until, maybe 10 years ago. Don't talk about, absolutely not. We don't talk about it. We don't acknowledge it. Hell, some of us don't even think it exists. And I was one of those people before, when I was a kid, because my mom has mental health issues. She's bipolar. My mom was committed to Broughton when I was in high school. I had to take care of my brothers while she was in a mental health institution, because what you're saying, no one acknowledges that. The way we were looking at it is, oh, mom needs attention. She acting crazy. She's trying to show out. Like, no, nobody acknowledged the fact that her bipolar, manic depressive state was actually a health concern. You wouldn't tell somebody with who's having a heart attack to go sit down. You're just trying to get attention. But for some reason, we look at these health concerns like they're not real. Like, just because they're not tangible, you can't see it happening or feel it happening, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so therefore, we pretend it don't exist. And we think it's a sign of weakness. And we think asking for help for those problems is a sign of weakness, and admitting that we can't do something. No, that's actually takes the most courage out of anyone I could ever imagine, because you have to be a real strong person to be able to admit that something ain't right with you and you need help from someone else. Oddly enough, I always joke about it, but it's my mom, like, growing up, kind of was in complete denial of her whiteness. And I've asked her as an adult, like, why did you act like that? Like, I didn't even realize my mom was white until I was older. Like, she's a white lady. It didn't really occur to me that my mom is white. And she is, because we were always raised, around our black families, around her black friends, in our black community, as black children, despite her whiteness. And I asked her why, and she said it was because she grew up and she saw how white people were, and she saw how her own family members treated their black friends. Like, you call this man a friend, and then you talk about him like this, or you treat him like this. And she said she wanted to remove herself from that as far as possible as she could, because she saw that as a young girl. And could you imagine what that type of self-hate could do to a person? That's where her depression and so on started. It stemmed from knowing that she got that in her, and there's nothing that she can do about it. And so what she decided to do about it is remove herself from her white community. She's never dated a white man ever in her life. She has 4 black children. She got kind of shunned from majority of her family. My grandparents were always supportive of us. But, in certain ways you can kind of feel you're still, like, not us. So our cousins and aunts and everybody moved away, so we were actually a lot closer to them. And honestly, I think that was because of my brother Tristan, because we were always over there. My mom wanted to spend as much time as possible. Again, they had certain ways about them, but our grandparents were very supportive of us. But in certain moments it wasn't like real. It felt kind of like fabricated. The biggest difference I would see between the two of us is probably, the whole family dynamic would probably be, I was staying the night a little more than my 2 brown brothers. Still not all the time, but like I was usually the one staying the night with them, and they would take me with them places, like go to visit our family and stuff, again, because of my complexion. And there's no denying that. But then again, once it's down to it, it matters. We got an inheritance from one of our aunts, and they denied us of that. All of my mom's siblings received a large sum of money that was left to them from our aunt. My mom was excluded from that because she chose to have black children. Wow. So although my complexion got me into a lot of like superficial activities, it still excluded me from things that actually mattered in our family. And then it definitely excluded my brothers on both aspects. But I mean, as far as another aspect of our healthcare system, I can definitely tell a huge difference between my experience with my second child, who is about to be 9 months old, versus my first child, who is now about to be 13 years old. And most of that experience changed because of myself. I learned about advocating for myself a little more, and I had a little more information as far as what my role as the patient is, which means that when I was pregnant with my daughter Amiliana, I was in my early 20s, so I didn't know much. And when you go to the doctor, I don't know about most people's experience, but from my experience, you go to the doctor and they pretty much telling you what you need to do. Like, okay, you're pregnant, we need to check you every single time you come in here. Checking you meaning, check my cervix and, get real intimate as far as my pregnancy went. Like,
every time?
Every girl. That's what I'm saying. I didn't know
I had 5 kids.
Listen, every time. And my first experience, mind you, I was on Medicaid. So I was still in the poverty level as far as my financial situation goes. And again, I'm just not, I don't know what to do when I go to the doctor. I just have always went, and they tell me what to do and I do it. But so yeah, they were checking me every time. They were telling me that they kind of prepped me for an induction from day one. And looking back on that, that's not how that goes. An induction is an option if it's super necessary, but what I've learned and noticed in our community, I can't prove it, but it's a thing. Like, they encourage a lot of black women to induce, and that is, I think that's because A, money, B, convenience. They want to make sure that when they go to deliver our babies, it's on their time. Not no spontaneous, I went into labor, call your doctor in the middle of the night on the weekend while they're on their fishing trip or whatever the case may be. They want us to be planned, like, all right, we're going to introduce you at just over 37 weeks because, it's some nonsense. Sometimes it's, genuine, but like, oh, you have preeclampsia, or oh, your blood pressure is slightly elevated, and, things like that. But come to find out, it's still up to me. I don't have to be induced, but my doctor suggested it, so therefore that's the route we went. Yeah, I mean, that is a person I view as someone in a authoritative role in my life. You're my doctor. My life is in your hands. So I need to do what you're asking me to do in order for this pregnancy and this delivery to be successful. So I'm going to trust you in that. So intimidation as far as like scaring me, no. Intimidation as far as making sure my health of myself and my baby are right, yes. So fast forward to this new pregnancy, I learned all this stuff. Like, they're not supposed to check you every time unless you're having some type of high-risk pregnancy or some type of medical concerns where they're supposed to be, they need to. But guess what Medicaid gets to do when they check you every single time? They get to, guess what the doctor gets to do every time they check you? They get to bill Medicaid. To them, that's free money. I'm gonna check you every single time because I get a check for that every single time I check you. And then fast forward to this pregnancy, I had to self-pay because guess what? I make a tiny bit too much to be to receive Medicaid, and so therefore I had to pay out of pocket. And I also discovered that self-pay insurance is a scam. I'm paying close to $800 a month for myself and my daughter for insurance, and we only go to the doctor once a year for our checkup. We're healthy, we're not on any medications, like so on and so forth. So it was really a waste of money for me to pay for medical insurance for us. So I decided to start paying all of our medical expenses out of pocket. Did not do me any justice at all. So with that being said, I got to choose my doctor this time, and the lady who I've been going to, she's actually local. Her name is Dr. Osei. She's from Ghana. She doesn't do prenatal care, so she referred me to someone she knew who did that. And so I started going to her. I'll meet you back in my chair. And she gave me all my options. When you're paying out of your pocket, it's way different. Like, they telling you what your pregnancy looks like, what your options are. They're checking you once when you come, and then not again until you ask or you get closer to time to have your baby. So there was the first biggest difference. I'm like, you're not going to check me every time? They're like, for what? That's when I learned that that wasn't even necessary, and it actually could have caused some complications. All right. So as far as our criminal justice system here in Asheville goes, I have a lot of feelings toward that, and a lot of thoughts come up from like childhood, as far as, you know, uncles getting abused physically by the police, or just the simple fact that I never knew why necessarily, but every time I saw the police I got nervous and scared and didn't think the thoughts of, oh, they're here, I'm safe now, the police are near me, like I'm good right now. And I never understood why I felt that way, to be honest with you, because again, I did have a white mom, so some of the lessons that we learned weren't necessarily race driven. It was more of, I mean, as far as the conversation goes, it was more like experience driven, like just looking and seeing for myself like what's going on and things like that. I know a lot of people are raised being told like, when you see the police you need to do this, this, and this because you're black. My mom did teach us that the because you're black part I kind of missed from my mom, but I noticed, like, I put two and two together the older I got, and reason being, kind of piggybacking off of my mom's mental health state, a good contrast would be how she was treated by the police as a child versus how my little brother was treated by the police once he grew up and was a young adult. When I was a kid, like I mentioned before, my mom got sent to Broughton for her mental health breakdown that she had or whatever. So when she was going through this, she ended up one way or another, ended up on a high-speed chase with the police. I'm talking about from Fairview all the way to West Asheville. She ended up on like behind Kmart. I don't know the name of that road, but the road behind Kmart, there's a gas station. She ended up getting caught up there, you know, Glocks pointed to her head, like so, all this crazy stuff, because she went on a high-speed chase with the police. They didn't kill my mom. They didn't shoot her. They didn't beat her. They didn't do any of the above. They cuffed her, took her to jail, realized it was mental health, sent her to Copestone. My mom then escaped Copestone, and that's how she ended up in Broughton. So fast forward to my young adult brother, who was also I guess, being accused for criminal activity, was not in a high-speed chase with the police. He was watched and followed by the police for I don't know how long, stopped by the police in the midst of going to purchase a gift card for my daughter at Fun Depot. The police stopped him and they said, go back to your vehicle, because at this time he was already out of the car, locked the car, and halfway to the door. My brother then asked them, why? Like, what did I do? And if anyone knows my brother, he's very mild-mannered, calm, sweet, never been in trouble, not even a traffic ticket at this point. Nothing, like squeaky clean, sweet guy. So in the midst of him asking why, up comes some undercover police officers along with the police officer who asked him to go to his vehicle. They yoke him up, start beating on him, and during this moment, like smashing his face up against a car, which later they ended up having the owner of the vehicle take out a warrant for his arrest for destruction to their property for the vehicle that they smacked his head up against. So now my brother's being charged for destructing someone's car with his face, and he wasn't resisting, he wasn't running, he wasn't being disrespectful, which are still no reasons for the police to abuse a person. But if there ever were, he wasn't doing anything to provoke that type of behavior from them. They beat my brother's ass. Like, I took him to the hospital. Once we bailed him out, I took him to the hospital, got him checked out. We then went up to the police department to file a official report, and we did so, which the funny thing about that was we were in the waiting area and I was reading a little plaque they had on the wall that said their mission statement, which included to protect and serve all members of the community. I have never felt protected or served by our local police department. I'm not saying that there's no good people in the police department, and I'm not saying that they don't do good things. I'm saying from my experience and my upbringing, and for me as an adult woman, I have never felt that from them. You all can decide why I haven't felt that way. I'm telling you, I don't get bubbly feelings when I get around the police, unfortunately. And so with all that being said, I've been rambling on about how injustice a lot of our systems are around here, and I'm sure all over the United States. And most of those systems are funded by our tax dollars.
Yeah.
Very heavy tax dollars that we have to pay, mind you. So I feel like part of our reparations decision should be exempting all black people from paying those tax dollars until they get that shit together.
Yeah.
Make this system serve my people the way it should, and then I will pay you my tax dollars. But until then, I shouldn't be paying for a service that I'm not receiving.
Mm-hmm.
The end.
Paying to get ass whooping. Who does that?
Makes no sense. So, I mean, our educational system fails us. Our economic situation is garbage. Our health situation is garbage. Like everything that we got going on right now, I'm sure people enter the situation with good intentions, but good intentions are not getting us anywhere right now. So we're gonna have to figure something else out. How our housing situation, oh my God. I'm talking, okay, again, let's start off with my mom, Christy. I know now, I mean, even I was even convinced by popular beliefs that most people who are in poverty are black people. No, I come from a white woman who utilized our free system as much as possible, as she should have. We had Medicaid, we had food stamps, we had WIC, we lived in public housing, we had Section 8, okay? And when I got old enough to move out on my own, which I very much wanted to, because again, my mom, don't get me wrong, my mama is a wonderful woman. She was a phenomenal mother. She raised us as good as she possibly could. But I was ready to take all the responsibility I had on my plate and delegate it to myself. I was tired of being responsible for her children and, you know, her shortcomings because she had to raise us on her own. I was her assistant mom, and I was ready to just be on my own. So, you know, I applied for Section 8. Don't know whatever happened to that application because I didn't get approved. Not that I didn't get approved. I guess the funds, I think I was told that there were maybe no more funds available, or maybe there were no more spaces available for Section 8. I don't know. So my first apartment was like $578, which back then was straight. It was just a 1-bedroom. And then, you know, as I got older, I did end up having my daughter, and so I needed to get a bigger space, which I ended up having to get when I moved out, my youngest brother moved out with me, mind you. He was still in high school. So he offered to pay rent because he felt like he should, which is how he got into selling drugs, because he felt like, you know, he had a job, but that wasn't enough to pay for our living situation, and he wanted to help his sister with, you know, my daughter, and he wanted to look out for our mom because that was just the financial situation we were in. And so luckily I had him as my roommate, and so he's doing that, going to high school, working a job, and handling the responsibilities that I feel he shouldn't even have had yet because of our housing situation. So, you know, just for the record, if anybody ever wonders why someone wants to sell drugs, it's usually because their current financial situation does not support how much it costs to live around here. And that is still true to this day. Right now, I stand behind this chair all day, every day, 8 to 10 hours a day, stand right here in this spot, non-stop. If I get a break, someone either canceled or I finished up applying early. And I make very good money. My rent for my 3-bedroom apartment for me and my 2 children is over $2,400 after our water fees, pet, whatever fees they add on. We don't have a pet, but we pay all kinds of random fees. $2,400 for a single mother who I make good money if you look at it on paper. But I'm also a business owner. I pay 2 sets of rents for my shops, 3 if you include my own personal rent, 3 sets of light bills, 3 sets of water bills, 3 sets of every bill that we all have to have. Okay? And so with that being said, I'm in control over my income, and I do make decent money, you would think, to be able to support that. But even I'm struggling. I'm 12 years into my career right now, 10 years being a business owner right now, and I'm pinching pennies. I haven't been on a vacation in 2 years because of how much it costs to live around here. And the average person, I can't tell you the exact numbers based off of today, but I know 3 years ago, the average single parent was making somewhere around, I want to say it was minimum wage, which is like $7.50 at the most, maybe $11 an hour. And it costed back then, 3 years ago, which we know that's done quadrupled. Back then it costed at least around $30 an hour to even just be okay. Like, meaning feed your kids, pay your bills, and be able to commute to where you need to be. And that was at the very least. Can't nobody afford to live here, and they're not paying people enough to do so. And when you do try to go get a place to live, when I went to my apartment complex 6 years ago, on the phone everything was all good, but then all of a sudden it was, oh, we need to hold on to everyone's license who are coming with me to view the apartment. I don't know if that's protocol or not, but I can guarantee you I asked all my white friends, did that happen to them? They were like, that's weird. So off gate they were already like, I'm seeing some brown people. My mom's Muslim, and so she had her hijab on. So, I guess we looked a little scary walking up in there. I don't know. But with that being said, a lot of the time it's hard for people to even acquire a place to live just based off of the initial interaction and assumptions that they get when they see you. And my white friends do find it easier to find housing than my black friends and family, in the sense of jumping through hurdles. The requirements are the same across the board for everyone, but who they decide to enforce it with is always up for debate. Like, my white friend says she makes $50 an hour. They take her word for that. I say I make $50 an hour. We need to see proof.
Yeah.
I work for myself. I don't have paycheck stubs. So unless I have my tax information for the year to prove that, it's hard. It's the hurdles that we have to jump through. It's kind of like, yeah, everybody has the same criteria to follow, but we're only going to make people follow it if we see fit. I went to go get a pre-approval 2 years ago, and they pre-approved me for, I think it was like $270,000. And so I was like, ooh, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, how was that cheaper?
And I went on to the to Zillow, just random places to see, like, okay, what is $270 some odd dollars gonna get me? Y'all, a hole in the wall. Matter of fact, I'm 90% sure this one house that I looked up was like a complete demo job. Like, you're gonna have to completely redo a home from start to finish to even stay the night in it. So no, can't nobody afford that. And I think you would think that would be plenty of money to be able to buy a home. And I think that was like I said, maybe 2-3 years ago. So now I think the average home, like as far as just a comfortable home for a single family, is at least the high end of the $400,000. Mm-hmm. No one can afford that. No. People say that to me all the time, like, Leandra, you made good money. You need to buy a house. I'm like, it's easier said than done. Not only am I a black woman, but I'm also a huge risk factor for a bank. I work for myself. Like, they don't want to let me borrow any money, especially enough money to be able to buy a decent home. So no, I don't think that I will be able to buy a home in my near future, at least, but until I'm at least in my 40s. And it's just unrealistic what they want, how much they want for these homes. And what you get out of the home is just, I'm talking about, these houses are built on top of each other. Mm-hmm. And then I make way too much to live in like an income-based situation. Mm-hmm. Make way too much. I think that part of what could be asked would be down payments on home. No, not even down payments. I think what could be asked for reparations in this community is a home. I think that we should be given a home either for free or at an actual affordable rate. That's not a habitat home or through any type of government program. I want a real home. I want a home that I pick out in an area I like, that's convenient to me. I live in Oakley right now. I want to continue to live there. And a nice sized piece of land for my kids to play outside and for me to have family gatherings. Like, I think that's not too much to ask for. What did they say before? 40 acres and a mule? Where is that? 40 acres?
Oh, they stole that with eminent domain.
I would like for people to know that we are a community in Asheville that exists, because a lot of people come to Asheville and don't realize that black people even live here. And I would like for our black community to know that we are a team and we need to come together and act as such so that we can receive these reparations in a helpful manner. Like, I want them to actually do something and really help our community and help us build wealth and generational wealth, and be able to demand that our systems that we spoke of to service us in the way that they are supposed to, not the way they are intended, because they're doing exactly what they were intended to do. I want them to service us in the way that they should. Like, we need to learn what we need to know to be for it to be conducive to our livelihoods, to be conducive to our families and our growth and our wealth and our everything. Like, we need to come together so we can demand these things to happen and quit allowing our counterparts to pit us against one another and look at one another as we are enemies and as we are competitors. We're not competing against anyone but our own individual selves. I'm competing with Leandra from 5-10 years ago, not with Tammy, not with anybody else in this room. I'm competing with myself, with my community. Like, we're all going to grow together and be as one and act like we got each other's back as we should. My hope for my children is that they take all of what I teach them as far as thinking for themselves and using that ability to better themselves, better their community, and I hope that whatever is decided to do with these reparations helps them in doing that. I think the last thing on their mind should be everyday needs, like their health and their education and their way they're going to eat, where they're going to sleep at night, where they're going to work. Those are basic human needs. That shouldn't even be on their mind. That should just be falling into place like it was intended, or like it should, not as it was intended, so that they can focus on growing and building and being a community once again as we used to be at some point in life. But we're distracted by all this nonsense, so that's not possible right now. So my hope is that these reparations take care of some of those worries for most of us, so that we can focus on things that are important